Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, this week in Davos, President Trump did something that terrified the global elite. He did not just criticize globalization, he declared that it is over, standing in front of the very people who designed, defended, and enforced this economic model. Donald Trump said the quiet bit out loud. The great globalist experiment has failed. Failed economically, failed socially, failed culturally, and crucially, it has failed the people that it was supposed to help. For decades, Western governments were told that borders did not matter, nations were outdated, and mass migration was simply progress. That industry could be outsourced, energy dependence ignored, and social cohesion treated as an afterthought. Donald Trump's message this week was simple. America is done with the globalist illusion. Tariffs are back, borders are back, energy independence is back. And the era of sacrificing ordinary citizens for abstract economic theories is being challenged head on. But the most explosive part of Trump's speech to me wasn't economic. It was civilizational. When he warned that parts of Europe are becoming unrecognizable, he was describing something that millions of people can already see and already feel. Not gradual change, not diversity in moderation, but demographic transformation, imposed from above, without public consent, without public debate, and without a serious plan for social integration. Just look around. Europe's great cities, London, Paris, Brussels, Stockholm, Berlin, are changing at a pace no society has ever absorbed without tension. Entire districts where the native population is now a minority. Many countries now have capital cities that are majority minority. Schools where shared languages and norms no longer really exist. Public trust is declining, politics is fragmenting. And this didn't happen by accident. It was a choice made by elites who never asked the public and who punished anybody who raised concerns as misinformed or far right. Donald Trump did not create this reality, he named it this week, and that is why his words have resonated, because nations are not spreadsheets. They are communities held together by a shared sense of culture, history, and belonging. And if you stretch that fabric too far, too fast, it tears and it gives way. The real question, I think, is not whether Donald Trump is right, but why Europe's leaders are still pretending that on this question of globalization and mass migration, he isn't. And this evening, we've got some more updates for you because Sir Keir Starmer has pulled his Chagos Islands bill following opposition from the United States of America. The legislation, which was due for debate in the House of Lords on Monday, was postponed tonight as we were coming to air after Conservative MPs warned that it might breach a 60-year-old treaty with America that affirms British sovereignty over the islands, and it's been postponed to a future date that is so far unknown. And the White House tonight has told GB News that President Trump is right. America's contributions to NATO far exceed those of other countries, and Donald Trump has suggested putting the NATO alliance to the test by invoking Article 5 and calling on allies to help defend the US southern border. Sir Keir Starmer, meanwhile, has called Donald Trump's comments on British troops in Afghanistan insulting and frankly appalling, suggesting that he should apologize, as Downing Street said Trump was wrong to diminish NATO and the role of British forces in Afghanistan. So lots going on tonight, which is why I am thankful to be joined by former Brexit Party MEP James Glancy to work through some of this. James, if we can, breaking news as we come on air tonight, the Chagos deal, it may be about to crash and burn. Can I get your reaction to what we're beginning to discover in the last few minutes?
Well, first of all, Matthew, it's good to be speaking to you. This deal is not over yet. They have pulled it from the Lords tonight, which is really great news because had it been passed next week, had the bill gone to vote, then it would then gone to the King for royal assent, and that would be it. We'd have lost sovereignty over our own territory, but not just that. The British taxpayer would be paying Mauritius for 100 years for our own islands, for our own base. And this is all without discussing this with the Chagosian people, the people that actually lived on those islands before they were taken away. What I would say about this, Matthew, and you'll probably recognize this as well, is that this is a really important issue for Labour ideologically. This is not about British security. This is not about the American base or Alliance of America. This is about decolonisation. They see this as as deeply ideological. It's about removing British power, and it's about the process of decolonizing Britain and taking away what they see as a sovereign asset that we have overseas that we shouldn't have. So that's why they're fighting so hard for this, because they know it's wrong. They know it's unjust on the British taxpayer. They know the Americans aren't happy with it. But ultimately, we're talking about people that at university were communists, were socialists, were Fabians. It's really important to Labour to try and decolonize the British Indian overseas territory. And that's why I think this bill will come back.
Sure. James Glancy, if I can, the other thing that I imagine will be generating a strong reaction within the Labour Party at the end of this week is Donald Trump's comments, as I mentioned there in my mono, regarding Europe becoming unrecognisable because of mass migration. We've seen this full tilt within the Trump team against not just economic globalization, the liberalization of trade and finance and so on with tariffs and the economic side of it, but actually what he's saying here is this is cultural. This is about Europe losing its essence, losing its very sense of self. What's your reaction to Trump's comments regarding Europe being unrecognizable?
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
I think, I'm actually, as you know, I make documentaries, and I've been filming in Hungary recently. And Hungary, Poland, which I also traveled to, and I've also been in Ukraine. They look like they did 20 years ago. They haven't had mass immigration. And so Eastern Europe has protected its borders. I've also been working in Germany, and I was working in Essen last year. And, you know, that's a formal industrial heartland of Germany. And there aren't many Germans when you're walking around the city. It's full of immigrants. And that's the same that's happened to British cities, other European cities like Antwerp, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, where the European white population have become minorities. We see this in Luton, we've seen it in London now. So it is true that in large, especially in urban areas across Europe, that we have seen declining fertility rates of European populations. And then we've seen mass immigration, both legal and illegal. I think the key thing here is that I don't remember any election in Europe where people voted for mass immigration into their cities, into their towns. I don't remember any party manifesto saying we're going to import millions and millions of people, and those that come here illegally, we're not going to get rid of them. And that's the main problem. There's no consent for mass replacement immigration.
Sure. James Glancy, you've also served our country, the armed forces. If I can just briefly get your reaction to Trump's comments with regards to NATO and Afghanistan. We've got Prince Harry now getting involved this evening or this afternoon, issuing comments in strong opposition to what President Trump has said. Keir Starmer's taken a particularly strong line in opposition to President Trump. What's your reaction as somebody that has served in the armed forces?
But it's idiotic. I cannot believe that a man that dodged the draft in Vietnam is now saying to veterans like me, and whether you're left, right, Labour, Conservative, Reform, everyone's like, British Brits cannot understand. I mean, I'm half deaf because of fighting Afghanistan. I've still got shrapnel in my hands. I lost so many men. I fought alongside the Americans. So he's talking nonsense about Afghanistan. However, when you talk about NATO, what he's right to say that most European countries, including Britain, have not been pulling their weight in defence spending, and the Americans are sick and tired of this. So there's two distinct things. He's been utterly disrespectful to veterans that fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he is wrong and he should apologise. But he's right about Europe's contribution to NATO and taking for granted America underwriting defence spending for all of NATO for the last 60 years.
Indeed. Well, thank you, James Glancy. Thank you as well for your service. I'm now going to bring in the panel, Associate Comment Editor for The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn, and political commentator Kai Wilshaw. Poppy, if I can just start on the Chagos issue, because there's a lot going on this evening. We're talking about the reaction to Trump's comments about NATO and Afghanistan, but as we were coming onto air, we read actually in your newspaper, where you work, the Daily Telegraph, that it looks like the Chagos deal might be crashing and burning this evening and not coming back on Monday, as it was planned to do. Can you offer any initial thoughts or reactions on that?
Yeah, so the response from the press has been to this very dramatic pulling of the bill ahead of the vote that was supposed to happen on Monday, is that it has something to do with American involvement. And it does, but perhaps not as directly as people may have expected. I don't actually think this has that much to do with Trump's statement that he's put out, but rather a treaty that was signed in 1966, which there were talks over in December about trying to remove. And this treaty was signed between the UK and the US, which recognised that Britain had sovereignty over these islands. It's a binding treaty which says America is not going to sign up to this deal while simultaneously recognising sovereignty of the British state over these islands. So it's one of those really funny 11th hour administrative plays that's kind of pulled out. But I will just say something else. I think the likelihood that the government actually did not win that vote on Monday is a lot higher than people might expect, because they have been lobbying so hard, particularly towards the Lib Dems, to try and get this bill over the line. And I think it really speaks to just how weak Keir Starmer is at the moment. If he cannot do this with the massive majority in Parliament he has, it raises really serious questions about legislation going forward in the future.
Kai Wilshaw, this would be the 13th U-turn, the 14th U-turn for Keir Starmer? I mean, this would be incredibly, it already is embarrassing for him this evening, but if this really does snowball into a full collapse of the proposed Chagos deal, I mean, this is existential stuff for Starmer's regime.
Yeah, and I really hope that Starmer and his advisors see this as an opportunity to retreat quietly from what they've been doing on Chagos. Because in a week where he said, or in the last few weeks, where he said he wants to focus on cost of living, handing these islands over for whatever reason, and I've never really tried to really understand the detail of the Chagos Islands thing, I'll be honest. But that just goes completely counter to this focus. And to the general layperson, to the person out in the street, you wonder, why on earth is this your focus? So why is this the hill that he's lying on? I hope that they let it go, because otherwise you're going to have more such U-turns, and it does show weakness, as Poppy says.
There's a lot that's also breaking this evening. We've got the comments, Donald Trump's comments with regard to NATO, Afghanistan, Starmer's strong response to that as well. Prince Harry's now wading in. Is this telling us something that we don't already know about the special relationship and the extent to which it is becoming quite tense, it is becoming quite polarising?
I wouldn't read that much into it, Matt, to be honest with you. Yes, there's been a need recently for some stronger rhetoric from Starmer on certain issues. But President Trump has shown before that he does recognise that, and I think probably his advisors are telling him he's really done wrong here, given that there's only a couple of countries that had more than 7 per million military deaths in Afghanistan. One of them was the UK, so he should apologise. I think he may.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. And just, Poppy Coburn, regarding Trump's comments on Europe being unrecognisable, that was a comment that sort of stuck in the throats of a lot of elites at Davos, this notion that here we are again a few months on from America saying Europe is at risk of civilizational erasure. We've had Vice President Vance also wading into this debate. He's got a point, though, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah. I mean, They have made this point really clear since Trump re-entered office for his second term. I mean, you mentioned JD Vance. He was talking to the Munich Security Conference when he first used this line about Europe being unrecognisable. There were actually gasps in the room that he dared to say that. In the National Security Strategy, which was published a few months ago, it's very clear that they are worried about Europe's sustainability as an ally, precisely because of this, that they are turning away from liberalism and they are being undermined by these foreign elements within society. So I think it's completely legitimate that they are to say this. You know, if we're going to have a really close relationship with the Americans, they need to know that they can trust us.
Yeah, no, absolutely.